Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Her Side of the Ruck. I'm Tash.
I'm Bernice.
And we're not pundits.
We're just two women who know what a ruck is.
Well, this weekend, international rugby was back. There were some amazing scorelines, record-making history for Scotland. 13 tries at Murrayfield. They nil the USA. We'll be talking about that match on this episode. England have a home win against not necessarily a full-strength Australia, but as an English woman, I was still happy with their performance. The Box put loads of points on the Japanese at Wembley in North London, and the All Blacks get their revenge against the Irish on American soil. We will be discussing all of those games and previewing the upcoming matches this weekend in this episode. But let's start. We'll go in chronological order as the games unfolded. England v Australia. Bernice, what are your initial thoughts on that match? An England win, but what were your thoughts on the overall performance?
Oh, my initial thoughts were, my prediction did not come true. So if you did not watch last week's episode, I predicted that Australia was going to win the game. Unfortunately, they did not. But of course, you are a very happy girl. Because England took the win. But yeah, I have to say I was surprised on like the one hand, but also on the other hand, I wasn't. So Australia was obviously missing a few of their key players who will be returning this weekend, and I think they're going to make a big difference in the team. So players like Lane Ikitau, James O'Connor, they will all be returning this weekend. But yeah, I think it will be disappointing for Australia. I think it's a very good win for England, and I really did not see that coming. I think England was just better on the day. They made better use of their opportunities. They were a little bit more accurate compared to Australia. I think other than Harry Potter's intercept try, there wasn't really much kind of going for them in that match. Whereas with England, I think they played a very good game.
I think we have to caveat, you've mentioned a couple of key players for Australia missing there. Will Skelton, another one of them. He is a beast. We saw the impact of him on the British and Irish Lions tour and during the Rugby Championships. So if he returns this weekend, I think that he will be a big attacking threat. Just overall on the event, George Ford, he got his Centurion cap when he was on the tour in Argentina this summer. So it was great for him to get the walkout at the weekend, 103 caps. I think that's so impressive. And he's 32, and you wouldn't think it because he is playing so well. He is definitely one of the most on-form 10s in the Prem. I think him, Finn Russell, Finn Smith are the top 10s in the Gallagher Prem at the minute in England. And when you looked at England's roster, you knew they were going to have that aerial game. And George Ford, although I personally think Finn Smith is the future at 10 because he's younger and George Ford won't be able to go forever. He might be able to go to the next World Cup, but after the next World Cup, Finn Smith for me is the future at England's 10. But it worked well, that first try for Ben Earl. He played like a centre. I know we mentioned on the show last week, like he can fluidly move between flanker, number 8, and he has played 12 before. He looked like an inside centre with those wheels, but it was a great gather by Tom Roebuck. Great offload to Sam Underhill. And Underhill was like, yeah, I know I can't do it. And I've got Ben on my shoulder. So throwing the ball back into more the centre channel. And that was just an amazing score. And Ben Earl has cemented himself. I mean, there's a reason he was selected for the Lions tour this year. He just keeps getting better and better and better. And I'm grateful that he's wearing the white with the rose on his chest. I do think the intercept was great. It was a great read from Potter. No magical jokes on this occasion. He ran the length of the field. I think the commentators were like, is he going to run out of gas? But no one was near him. I think the initial acceleration is what set him apart from England's defence at that point. And he has been a fantastic, I thought he was an outstanding player in the summer for Australia. And I think sometimes he can go a bit under the radar, but that was really their only great form of attacking play, I thought. It looks like they're having a little bit of a crisis at 10. I think that will be resolved next week when you've got James O'Connor coming back in. And I think for Leicester, he's slotted great really well in with Jeff Parling at head coach. Already that Australian relationship because Jeff was with the Wallabies before coming to Tigers. So I think James O'Connor will step straight back into the Wallabies jersey. And okay, yeah, he's what, 35, 36 now. But again, what are these fly halves eating and drinking? Because some of these guys are performing really, really, really well. Can we talk about Henry Pollock, Slim Shady? He brought an injection of energy onto the pitch. And okay, the haters will say that and objectively, he did celebrate before scoring that try. And I think the critics definitely would have come at him if he hadn't have scored the try because he looks at himself on the screen and he's just like, oh gosh, Henry, 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 Henry. But
Yeah.
he scores, he pulls it off. And I think, again, that one try, it just sets the momentum going and England just kicked on and they seem to get a lot better. The bomb squad bench.
Mm.
I feel like Steve Borthwick might be borrowing a couple of Razzie's tactics on that one. And I think it worked. There were so many Lions on the English bench and it showed. So I don't think Australia they've had a tough time because they've played in several different time zones in the last 4 to 5 months. And then also playing it outside of the main international window has ruled out some of their top players from playing. I think Australia looked fatigued, and hopefully we only see that against England, and then we don't see it again throughout the tournament because we know how good Australia can be. They proved it against the
Mm.
Springboks. They proved it against the British and Irish Lions. The first test against the Lions wasn't very good, but how they performed in Melbourne and how they performed in the third test, you can't write them off as a nation. I just think they were unlucky with that fixture, but England wanted the money. I think they raked in like 10, 12 million quid. So good to get revenue up for English rugby. Moving on, the box v Japan. We both predicted it to win. I think I said by like 20 or something,
Mm.
and they go a bit further than that. 61 sevens, 9 tries. And for me, Sasha Feinberg Magonzulu, he was pulling the strings. Masterful.
It's insane. I think what Sasha has done in the past season playing for the Springboks, like he's really cemented his place in the Springbok team. But not only that, he's just been such a key player when he does play for the Springboks. And this game reminded me a lot of the match in Durban where the Springboks played Argentina, where he scored his hat-trick try, like the same magic that he created there. He did it again this weekend. And he's just so creative with his style of play. He's insane on attack. And I think you said it as well, but like his decision making, just overall, and in terms of organizing the attack, like he is just so good at it. Yeah, I was actually quite surprised that he did not get man of the match, but I mean, Kurtley Arendse also had a great game, so nothing nothing against him. I think any of the players could have gotten man of the match, but yeah, Sasha was really the standout player. I do think it wasn't the perfect performance. Obviously, I think the weather conditions played a bit of the part in the match, but I have to say, I think the Springboks adapted very well to it.
Mm.
Quite surprising. I think it could have been much worse if you can say it like that. But yeah, I think we can be very happy with the win. Still, yes, we are going to be tested against France this weekend and against Ireland, and we still have a few tough matches coming up. But I think it is a good win for the Springboks. Starting off your autumn international series that way is great. Unfortunately, Ox's injury is serious,
Yeah.
which is not great for the Springboks, seeing Jan Hendrik Wessels is suspended. So yeah, it's not great, but yeah, I think it was a really good win in terms of what we wanted to achieve from that game, and especially the history between the Springboks and Japan. You know, there was a lot of talks surrounding the match this weekend, and also their captain saying, you know, they will be dominating us and etc. etc. And yeah, I think the Springboks just kind of put their foot down, and yeah, they're just like, nah.
For
So
sure.
yeah.
South Africa have shown in the past few months that they can score a variation of tries, rely on that set piece, which is what we traditionally see them do and what we've seen them do in World Cups. But again, there was a real variation of Sash Feinberg just picking a great line and running it and putting the ball down really, really well versus what you going from the set piece, line out into a great driving maul and
Mm.
using that power. And I think we both predicted on the show last week that the Box were probably going to overpower Japan in the set piece. Japan are more of a side who throw the ball around a lot and are sniping, and that is how they scored their one try from their scrum half, just sniping through the gap. I don't think that was necessarily a lapse in defence. I just think it was a good line
Mm.
picked by the Japanese. Springboks have got a lot of depth at 10 as well, which is great. Traditionally you're a country that has a lot of depth in the forward pack, but it's great to see that you got a variation of fly halves because Sasha, Mani, and Hondre are all very different with their identity.
Mm.
And I think Razzie is a very lucky man. Well, very lucky man, or has just coached them well. I don't know. Probably a mixture of both, I guess. But he's got three
Yeah.
fly halves who can play very different games and he can pull them in, hoping that they all stay fit, bring them in when you want to implement different tactics. So I think it's interesting. Sasha had a great game. I think Manny's a better 10 ball in hand, not as good a kicker, and Hondre is your classic kicker. So that variation at 10, I think is great. And having with that kind of kicking style, we're seeing rugby go. We're doing a lot of aerial battles in the men's game
Mm.
at the minute, loads of aerial battles, club and country. And with someone like Ethan Hooker, I know one of your personal favourites, or our personal favourites, I guess. He's so reliable under the high ball, and I think he is really cementing his place there on the wing in a box jersey. So that's great to see, and it's great to see a mixture of experience and youth in the Springboks side going forward. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, France, we'll give our predictions at the end of this episode, but that's going to be a cracking match. Okay, let's move on to talk about Scotland v the USA. 13 tries at Scottish Gas Murrayfield for the biggest ever win there. Hat tricks for Darcy Graham and Jamie Doby, both playing the URC. Two tries for Duhan van der Merwe on his 50th cap, which is great. I mean, we all know that. I think Jamie Doby, he doesn't surprise me because I think that he will be a
Mm.
future British and Irish Lion. He's still very young and he is very knowledgeable at scrum half. And I think he's got a good kicking game, but his distribution's also very good. And he plays with a lot of maturity. So I'm glad to see him go over the line. If you're a Scotland fan, undoubtedly you are going to be buzzing and over the moon. But I think for neutrals, this was probably a fairly I don't want, not boring, but incredibly one-sided, and you could turn away and then turn back, and Scotland have put another try on the USA. That's how it kind of unfolded. What were your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with everything that you're saying in terms of, if you're a Scotland fan, it was obviously a great
Mm,
match to watch. And I think obviously being at Murrayfield would have also been great. It
mm,
was very one-sided. Scotland dominated in almost every aspect of the game. But yeah, I think you also need those games as a team. So as Scotland, you're building your squad for the autumn internationals, and so you kind of play with the cards that you've been dealt with. So you still have to play that game, and you still have to um try and test a few things. So I think it's a very good kind of foundation to build from for Scotland for
mm,
the rest of the matches ahead. But yeah, I think it it is a little concerning for the USA in terms of just seeing the gap that there is between nations like so all of your European nations and then the
mm.
USA. So I think that was evident, and I think so both of us predicted Scotland to win, but I never thought they would put up 80 points in that match.
No.
So I think that was quite shocking to see. I think it was a great win for Scotland. Darcy Graham, as we've said, we are both massive fans.
Mm,
He had a very good game. Duan van der Merwe obviously scoring his two tries. And then Dylan Richardson scored a try. Carl
mm.
Rowe, yeah, it was just a try fest basically for Scotland. USA was just under pressure the whole time and kind of felt like they didn't really know what to do with it. And yeah, I just think Scotland had the momentum from the start and they just built from that. They never really lost the momentum. was a great match for Scotland.
I think that is a skill in itself to not switch off because I've
Mm,
watched, I'm sure everybody in the world of rugby has watched a couple of games where a team has ran away with it and then switch off. And then the quality of the game either dips or actually they might go on
mm,
to lose or draw a game because mentally they've just clocked off and gone, oh, we've
yeah.
already won the game. But you don't win a game in one half. It's a 80-minute
Mm,
game and you can be ahead and you can have a poorer second half or a poorer first half and a better second half. But ultimately, you need a coherent 80-minute performance. And Scotland
yeah.
seemed to deliver that. And I think there's a lot of competition for the starting jerseys in Scotland. And I do think Gregor Townsend will heavily rotate the squad for the All Blacks fixture. Like Sione
Mm,
Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones
yeah.
were not playing against the USA. They will inevitably start at 12 and 13. So there will be some heavy rotations, but it was good for a lot of these boys who play in the URC as well as other leagues to get a run out. The question is this a useful fixture for either nation? Apart from it
Mm,
builds Scotland's confidence, it's an ego boost. What do they actually learn from this? That they can score tries? Yeah, great, amazing. Like, and it makes the highlight reel and it makes Scots really happy. I'm
mm,
not saying that's a bad thing. For the USA, what do they learn from it? It's not a competitive game. And okay, you do learn a lot from losing, but not when you get a battering
mm,
like that. Because 85-0, I'm sorry, it is a battering. I don't want to put it
yeah.
harshly, but that's just the
Mm,
truth. So
no.
is it a useful fixture for either side? I would say it's not, because what do you actually learn? I read a lot of comments coming out of that match, and people were saying it was just like a training run for Scotland.
Mm,
And it is concerning that the USA is so far away. You do have to give the lower tier nations opportunities to play the top tier nations. You have to, because how are you going to develop rugby in this world in the rest of the world? But when you've got
mm,
the Rugby World Cup in 2031 happening in the USA, you've got this gap, it's concerning. So, what is happening with USA rugby and infrastructure? It seems like their women's program is a lot stronger than the men's program, but the USA didn't get out of the Women's Rugby World Cup pool stages. So, to be fair, they had a tough pool. So, it was going to be competitive one way or another. When you have England and Australia in your pool, that's a tough
yeah.
one. But on both sides, men's and women's, it seems like there's still a lot of development to go with
Mm,
that one. So
yeah.
let us know your thoughts in the comment section, what you've thought of this fixture, and if you're really concerned about the USA going forward, or if you have any thoughts about where they could improve as a side and how they can go about doing that. But yeah, great for Scotland. I mean, I want Scotland to win when England aren't playing. I just don't like Scotland playing England. That's all. So, and in the Six Nations this year, that clashes at Murrayfield, which that's always very difficult. I don't think England have won at Murrayfield in like years and years and years. So we'll see.
Crazy.
Talking of the Americas, Ireland v New Zealand in Chicago played at an NFL stadium. And first of all, I'll give a comment on the look of it. Rugby should not be played on an NFL ground. I think if Chicago is going to be there are lots of cities bidding to host the 2031 Rugby World Cup, but they need to build some actual rugby stadiums for it. And the states have got a lot of land. I'm sure they can do it, but it doesn't look right when you can see the NFL lines. It doesn't look right on a rugby field. So I'd like to hope that the USA will build a purpose-built rugby stadium
Mm,
ahead of 2031. Onto the game, a very physical match. I think this was the most competitive fixture of the weekend, particularly in terms of scoreline. But let's start with the controversy. Ty Burn given a yellow card for kind of I'm going to mimic it. It wasn't even that much of a push. It was literally like this. That's what it was, in my opinion. And he got given a 20-minute red for it afterwards. I think people have said that after the match that it was a wrong decision. I personally think that was incredibly harsh. But what
mm.
about you?
Even when the decision was reviewed. So I get the whole, there's head contact. So then it ultimately kind of ticks the box for, okay, it's an off-field review.
Yeah.
But just in terms of like the incident, like I just don't get where is the room for this is purely a rugby incident. Because to me, it looked like Bowden Barrett ran into Tide Burn more
And
than
he was
Tide
already
Burn
pushing, coming back.
yes.
Yeah.
So Sideburn was kind of passive in that regard, whereas, yeah,
Mm,
so Bowden Barrett was just running into him. I think there's a lot of factors that play a role, and some people might say, yes, but he should have been lower. But how in that like situation do you even get lower when that just like wasn't the situation? And Sideburn also spoke about like the forward pass, and I think that also had to do with like the whole situation of Bowden
mm,
Barrett kind of coming up very early and Sideburn just standing there. So I don't think there was any dangerous play or any
no.
intention to harm Bowden Barrett. And I think the intention behind considering something foul play is very important. And I just didn't see that as intentionally. Yes, there was no rap, and you, if you look at it that way, then maybe, but I just think you have to look at the situation holistically. And to me, that was just a rugby incident. I honestly say, like, not even a penalty. I just don't see foul play. Yeah. What about
That
you?
That's what I thought. I was with colleagues after working the Ealing Trailfinders game, which was quite a tight one. But the weather in London was horrific on the Saturday. It affected the England game,
Mm,
it affected the Springboks game, it affected Champ
yeah.
Rugby. So we went to the pub afterwards. We watched the game, and most of my colleagues had gone, "Oh, Ireland will win," and I went, I think the
Mm,
All Blacks will take it. And I said it on the show last week. I think they've got something to prove after the
mm,
Rugby Championship and losing
yeah.
out on that occasion. I stood there, we watched there, the replay kept going over and over and over again. And I said, that's a penalty, Max. I know that they might go for a yellow because it
Mm,
is head contact. And when you
yeah.
look at the laws, I understand that. But when you
Mm,
watch the replay in full time, he doesn't push him. Ty Burn
yeah.
is almost like protecting himself
Yeah.
from Bowden Barrett running into him. There was no force and there was no malice. Thankfully, I don't think it killed the game because where the
Mm,
Kiwis got better was in the latter stages of the second half rather than the
mm,
first half. The first half was still competitive, and I think even with 14 men on the field, Ireland coped incredibly well at that point in time. They just fell off in the latter half of the game, and New Zealand got better. I think, and they just
mm,
kept consistently attacking and penetrated the space. The island, even if it was a small space, it was still space and they were going to run their lines. So I think it was incredibly harsh and unfair. And given Tyburn is in great form, he's in fantastic form for Munster since coming off the back of the British and
mm,
Irish Lions tour. He's a
yeah.
consistent playmaker. He does his work rate around the field for Ireland is insane. I just thought it was not a silly call, but not the call I think some other referees would have made. However, in the pressure of the moment, the referee was maybe going
Mm,
by the rule book, but we've discussed on previous episodes of the show that referees will interpret the law differently, and as long as they're consistent, that's the main thing. But do you think that this ref was consistent? Let us know in the comments if you have any thoughts about this decision on Ty Burn. Talk about the rest of the match. I thought there were lots of handling errors, and then that caused the
mm,
attack to go one way and another, which meant there was a
mm,
very physical battle kind of in the centre of the field, and not as many times where both sides were either going into their opposition's 22, but then New Zealand seemed to just calm down around the 60th minute when they scored that try and then going on to score the others. I know the last one in the red clock got disallowed, but
mm,
once they scored one, they just kept going as I think that Ireland were a better team in the first half rather than the second
mm.
half.
Yeah, and I think a key area for New Zealand where they've kind of struggled in their past few matches, they scored 3 tries in the last 20 minutes, and that's an area where they really struggled in their previous
Mm,
matches, was actually building on that momentum and finishing their games off strong. So they conceded a lot of penalties or they lost games in the last 20 minutes in previous matches throughout the year. And I think this time around it was the other way around. So they
mm,
actually played a lot better in the last 20 minutes. And I think we always emphasize that the game is 80 minutes, but I think for New Zealand, this will be particularly an area that they can be very proud of and hopefully
for
build
sure.
on. So I have to agree with you. I think in the first half it was Ireland's game, even with them having the red card, 20-minute red card. And then the second half was New Zealand's game. I think they were just a little bit more clinical. They executed it a bit better, and they also took their opportunities in the second
Mhm.
half. So I think just a word on Fabian Holland. I saw this picture of him where he was in the crowd in 2023, and he was a fan at that time. And now 2 years later, he's playing for New Zealand. And we always speak about moments both on and off the field. And I think that is just something that is so special. So yeah, that was great to see and such a sweet moment for rugby.
Hard work pays off. And if
Yeah.
you can see it, you can be it. That's for sure. So yeah, great to see him in the All Blacks jersey. And I think that All Blacks have definitely, this is not the strongest All Blacks team I think that we've seen in
Mm,
history. And I think the Rugby Championship definitely cemented that. I think
mm,
people are aware of how strong the Springboks are,
mm,
how good Australia can be, how good
mm.
away from home Los Pumas are, which is why I think Los Pumas will do quite well in this Autumn Nations series because it's not being played in Argentina. It's like they all like playing away from home for some reason, but
Yeah.
a lot of them play in the Northern Hemisphere because
Mm,
Argentina doesn't really have a domestic
yeah.
league. So a lot of them play in France and
Mm,
England, really. Some of them play in
true.
Scotland, but primarily France and England. So yeah, I think the All Blacks will need to. I think it's good for them to get their confidence back. I think Ireland potentially needs to go back to the drawing board. Some people have said Crowley was not at his best. There's still a crisis at 10. I don't think that's true. I don't think there is a crisis at 10. I think Crowley is Ireland's 10. I just think there are things that they need to narrow out. But given I watched the Lions Unlocked documentary or on whatever the title was, I can't remember. It's on TNT Sports, and you see Andy Farrell and what type of coach he is. And I always think with sports documentaries, think areas can be improved. But I really enjoyed watching this one, and you really get a sense for who Andy Farrell is as a man and that he is someone that people want to follow. So I have no doubt that Ireland will rebuild. I just think it's a question, a wider question of do they stick with the team that Andy Farrell has been
Mm,
comfortable with and knows his boys in and out, or does he start to bring a bit more fresh blood in to try and build for a bit more of a longer term Ireland? Because someone like Bundyaki, for example, amazing player, an absolute beast, but he's definitely coming to the latter end of his career. What
mm,
happens when he does decide to retire? Which I don't think will be imminent because why it wouldn't be
mm,
because he was on the Lions tour and he's going to start for Ireland any day of the week. However, you have got to bear that future in mind.
mm.
And I think other nations are handling that a little bit better than Ireland at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think especially with the World Cup in mind and the draw just right around the corner, I think Andy Farrell's definitely, I think we said it in the previous episode when we reviewed the autumn internationals. Is it kind of a comfort zone thing for Andy Farrell? Like he knows the players, he knows what they will bring to the table. But either way, it doesn't really matter what the reasoning is behind it. But he's definitely going to have to look into depth and building depth for the World Cup. I mean, we are 2 years away from the World Cup. So, yeah, he's definitely going to have to bring in some young blood. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
For sure, we will definitely see what happens in the rest of the Autumn Nations series. And Ireland play Japan this weekend. Predictions for that match, I'm predicting the Irish to win by 15. I think Japan can do have threats, but I don't think, again, I think Ireland's set piece will dominate the Japanese.
Yeah, I am going a little bit bigger with the margin this time around, but I'm going to say Ireland by 22 points.
Yeah, I think that's also reasonable. I can see that
Mm,
happening, particularly in Ireland. Got back on
yeah.
home soil, and I think they'll go back to the drawing board. The All Blacks is a tough first fixture. It will be interesting to see how Ireland adapt and if they play a slightly different style of rugby against a different style of team.
Mm,
A big one. Scotland versus New Zealand. Scotland have never beaten New Zealand. That is going to be a delta of a match because Scotland heavily rotated their team this weekend. Like you didn't have Finn Russell start, Blair Kinghorn didn't start, Sione Tuipulotu, Hugh Jones. I think all of those guys will come back into the squad. I think maybe Darcy Graham and Duhan van der Merwe will probably start on the wing as they did this week. But I think that squad will be heavily rotated by Gregor Townsend in anticipation for the All Blacks. I don't think there will be as many rotations for the All Blacks given the success against Ireland and
mm,
Chicago. My heart says Scotland by 3 because I've worked with a lot of these players in my career, and when England are playing, I want Scotland to win. But my head says the Kiwis by 10.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be one of the biggest matches of the weekend, and
Mm.
I'm very excited to see Scotland play at their home stadium against New Zealand. I think they just have so much talent in their team, and I think there's a lot of potential for this to be a close match. I do, however, think the All Blacks will come out on top. I think they will win by 8 points. But I'm very, very excited for this match. I can't wait to see what Scotland will do. And especially because we've spoken about the USA game and how it's not really a good measurement for Scotland in terms of where they are at. So I think this is going to be interesting. But yeah, I am looking forward to this one.
And as well, regardless of what the result is, it will have a big impact on the world
Yeah,
rankings as well ahead
yeah.
of the World Cup draw next month. England, Fiji. We know the Fijians love to play this majestic style of rugby,
Mm,
and I think England are starting to diversify their style of rugby. Steve Borthwick has a certain style of rugby, but I think with Lee Blackett coming in as attack coach, not sure if that's officially started, but and with the rosters that he's got, I think we're starting to see a more diverse England team. I think we'll see the ball thrown a lot out wide, a lot onto the
yeah.
wingers, into the wide channels. We'll see a
Mm,
lot of fast, flair, pacey rugby, which is great and what a lot of rugby fans pay a lot of money to see at the Alliance in Twickenham. I'm obviously going to back the men in white, and I'm going to go for a fairly big margin and say they're going to win
mm.
by 14 points.
This is one of those matches also where you just gotta enjoy watching it as a neutral because it's always so fun watching Fiji play. And that always brings something different to the table. I also think England are going to take the win. I think they're going to win by 7 points. Yeah, I, my heart in this regard says Fiji, but my head is just fighting against it and just saying, no, England will win. But yeah, it's just always so exciting watching Fiji. And they are the team that can surprise you anytime,
Mm.
anywhere. So you just never know with them. But I'm gonna go with England on this one.
I agree. I think Fiji can cause upsets, but I'm hoping that
Mm.
England shut them down, particularly with the set piece this weekend. Next, we have Italy, and they faced the Wallabies. I think Italy have really grown as a team in recent years, but I think when the Australians get their kind of key playmakers back in their squad this season, I see the Wallabies taking this one by 7.
Yeah, I agree. I think if the Wallabies had the same team that they had against England, then the scoreboard might have been a lot tighter or a lot closer. But yeah, I think the key players returning will make a huge difference in terms of just overall performance. So I definitely think the Wallabies to win. I say Wallabies by 9.
The big one, I think this is going to be the biggest game of the weekend coming onto it. France v South Africa. I think both, I mean, South Africa are in a fantastic place at the minute.
Mm.
I think the issues that they had maybe in the summer have been ironed out through the Rugby Championship, and they put that coherent performance against Japan. France will obviously be a stronger opposition. And okay, yeah, it's in Europe, but I don't think the French will take it. I think the Box will win by 9.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think this is definitely going to be the match of the weekend. I think this one and then Scotland versus New Zealand. I think those are the
Mm,
two biggest matches of the weekend. But
for sure.
yeah, I definitely think South Africa will win. There have been a lot of talks around, is it a revenge game? Where's France's head at? Where's South Africa's head at? Fabian Gaultier has been saying that he's scared that South Africa might spy on them in their training. So, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. But I am predicting South Africa to win by 1. No, I'm just kidding.
Imagine.
And no, let's leave the revenge for something else. But no, I say South Africa to win by 6 points.
Yeah, tight scoreline. I think it'll be a
Yeah,
fantastic game. And I agree with you.
yeah.
Scotland, the All Blacks, France, Springboks, two best games of the weekend. And then finally on the Sunday, we've got Wales v the Los Pumas. Argentina are typically, as I've already mentioned, better away from home. And I hope we see some progress in Welsh rugby because they have gone through a tough time. But I don't think they will do enough to beat Argentina. And I'm saying the Los Pumas will win by 12.
Yeah, I also have Los Pumas to win by 9. Yeah, just as you've mentioned, I think the Los Pumas have been very good away from home. So this is also going to be an interesting match. I mean, Wales, obviously, you seeing where they are at the moment in terms of their rugby, both in the URC and internationally, is they're not at a good space. So if they can win, I think it will be good for them. But I don't see that happening.
Thank you so much for watching another episode of Her Side of the Ruck. That's all we've got time for on this episode, and we'll be following along all the international action unfolding this week. And if you have any thoughts on last weekend's game or any of the games playing this weekend, please drop us a comment. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the thumbs up button. And if you're new to the channel, that red subscribe button, please join our community and get involved with the rugby conversations. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Signing off from the UK is me, Tash.
Signing off is me, Bernice from South Africa.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.